I gotta say, this year's playoffs tonight, Tampa knocked out Detroit. Detroit fought valiantly. They just couldn't overcome Tampa. Um, the Penguins are stomping the Rangers. I feel for Lundqvist, but at the same time, there's a part of me that thinks maybe Lundqvist's best days are behind him. And it's either one of two things. Either Lundqvist is not the premier goalie he was recently, as recently as a year or two ago, or he needs change of scenery. And I'm not sure how you move that contract. And I'm not sure if you're a Rangers fan, how you feel about the idea of trading Lundqvist. Now, Chicago just scored. So Chicago's up 2-1 in the game I'm watching right now, trying to stave off elimination. And as I've learned over the years, never count Chicago out. Ever. Just don't. Blackhawks are always dangerous. I hated them so much as a Canucks fan for so many years. I don't hate them anymore, but it is so tough. That's not a goal. Oh yeah, no, that is. Never mind. Yeah, that's a goal. Tampa, man, it's scary. Scary to think of what these guys are going to be able to do. And then Anaheim came back and tied their series. Nashville, all you had to do was get a split at home. Now home ice is back in Nashville's end of things, or back in Anaheim's end of things, and the Ducks are probably going to take the series. The Ducks are a better team than Nashville. I never said that Nashville wasn't better. Nashville was better than Anaheim. I said it's a good matchup for Nashville. The best team doesn't always win in the playoffs, and it's a truth that I don't know if it only happens in hockey. I guess not, because you see it in basketball too, where if the underdog plays really well together cohesively, they can do something. It's tougher in football, and it's definitely tough in baseball. Baseball, an individual sport. It's tough for that underdog to win, because baseball's all individual performances, and this is team thing. I mean, if you have a really good manager in baseball, they can do something for you, but you have to have the talent. And in hockey, you can have a defensive strategy that is able to supersede talent. See, and St. Louis is out shooting them 18-14. St. Louis has played relatively well against Chicago, but if Chicago wins this tonight, then it's a series. Chicago wins this, then it's a 3-2 series, and it'll start creeping into the Blues' heads. It's like, it's great that San Jose got a split at home, and now they're going into Game 5, up 3-1. But if the Kings win, it's going to start messing with them. That, oh crap, is it happening again feeling. I kind of hope it doesn't, because I like to see different teams win. And seeing that St. Louis has been in the league for, well, it'll be their 50th year next year, it would be nice to see them win once. As a Canucks fan, as a fan of seeing different teams win the Cup, it would be nice to see them win once. Because it's tough, and I always see fans complaining about, oh, this team hasn't won the Cup, and this team. There's 1 out of 30 teams that wins the Cup. So that's a 3% chance you win the Cup. I'm going to try not to Scott Steiner this. And when you consider that a team can win a cup multiple times, Chicago's had it 3 times, well, now your 3% chance has dropped over the last 6 years. And the Kings have 2 of those wins, and then the Bruins have the other one. So that's 3 teams have won in the last 6 years. It is really hard to win a championship in hockey. It is really tough in any sport now to win a championship, because there's so many teams. Expansion in every league has made it so that a championship is really difficult to attain. You can buy one in baseball. You can build one in baseball. And you can buy and build one in hockey. Even with the salary cap, there's a lot of teams like Chicago that are actually paying well above the salary cap. But because salaries are averaged out, they just front load a contract, and they'll pay way above the cap, but the cap hit is actually lower. And they can sign all these free agents and manage to keep everything under the cap. It's crooked. It is. And the NHL doesn't really care. The NHL pretends they care, but they really don't. And the NHLPA is not going to care because their union members are making more money, so the union's going to get more money back. But it gives a false sense of parity. This is why certain teams just stay at or near the bottom, like a Columbus or a Carolina. I mean, your cash flow is going to be lower. You're not going to have the money to pay the big salaries. And, so you're going to have a guy who might have a high cap hit, but maybe he's at the tail end of his career and his actual salary is lower if he has the high cap hit. They got Kane and Taves playing together. Yeah, they do too. I guess, when you're on the verge of being eliminated, I guess all bets are off. But I'm excited for the next round. I think the next round is going to be pretty intense. I really appreciate the division matchups. There's been a lot of complaints about 100-point teams are facing each other, and a 100-point team is going to be out in the first round. I looked. Actually, let me look again. I'll look while I'm actually making this video. Come on, TSN, load. I looked at the NHL standings, and I looked at how many teams got 100 points, and then I sort of went, okay, but how many teams really got 100 points? Let me just go and check. Come on, load. I'd have like interlude music if I did like the big channels do on YouTube, but I don't do that. Come on. Come on. No, actually I didn't want to do wildcard. Oh crap. League. Okay, so Washington got 120 points in 82 games. 120 points is amazing. However, if you erase the loser points, they got 112. Still a great season, but 120, that's like in Edmonton Oilers 80s, Montreal Canadiens in the 70s territory, and they're not that good. Dallas, 100 points exactly, if you take away the loser point, and nobody else has 100 points. There's 2 teams in the NHL that are legitimate 100 points this season teams. This is why I go nuts when I hear people saying, a team with 100 points is going to get eliminated. Yes, the Anaheim Ducks got 100 points this year, 11 loser points. The Chicago Blackhawks, 9 loser points. St. Louis, 9 loser points. 9 loser points for Dallas, so they'd be right at 100 points. 10 loser points for the Islanders, so they technically were a 90-point team. The Rangers got 9, so they're a 92-point team. The Kings had 6, they're a 96-point team. Florida had 9, so they're a 94-point team. And Anaheim's 11 pulls them down to a 92-point team. San Jose drops to 92. Tampa drops to 92. See, this is the funny thing, that teams that lost in regulation rather than overtime get penalized. And there's actually 2 teams that would have made the playoffs that would have been, no, 3 teams that would have been exactly 500. Philadelphia had 14 loser points. Same as Nashville. So, oh, look, they had a 96-point season. No, they had a 500 season. Both of them. They won 41 games. They lost 41. The loser point makes no... I get it from an NHL standpoint. It pumps up all these teams to make them look better than they are. But it's frustrating. You don't see... Oh, wow, Chicago scored again. So it's 3-1. You don't see in baseball, we're in extra innings. Well, at least they got the loser point. No. Basketball. Nope. Football. Nope. But hockey? Well, man, they're tied after 60 minutes. It'd be a shame to not see one of these teams get a point. They've both earned a point. Shucks. What a good team. No. No. How much more entertaining would overtime be if it was 2 points or none? And not only that, I would do away with the shootout. I would have overtime go until you have a winner. I'd still play 3-on-3 because it'll get a winner pretty damn quick. And no loser point. None. You can have the overtime loss as your third column and make that a tiebreaker. So if two teams play, finish with 82 points, the team with more overtime losses gets the bump ahead of the team with more regulation losses. Then you can say, well, they were tied through 60 minutes more than that other team, so they played better. I don't have a problem with that, but the loser point needs to go. Because I'm so fucking sick of hearing, oh, this team's a 100-point team, and looking at the standings going, no, they're not. They just aren't. The loser point shouldn't exist. If I lose two times, and, let's say you're the Canucks, and you lose twice in overtime, and Calgary wins one and loses one. They lose in regulation. You're tied. How? I lost 2 games, you won 1. But we're tied in points. I'm baffled. So I really wish the NHL would do away with it. They won't. They never will. It's an argument that'll fall on deaf ears, but if they got rid of the loser point, I think it would create much more exciting regular season games. And then you can actually get rid of the point system altogether and go a basketball way of just counting wins, which I think is a better system. Well, baseball too. You just count wins. Nothing else matters. Just the wins. So you wouldn't have, with 3 minutes left, let's stop trying to play. We're tied right now. Everybody stop. Just stop trying to play, and we're going to both get a point. That last 3 minutes is going to be crazy because they don't want to go to overtime. Maybe you just had overtime last night in Calgary, and now you're in Vancouver. You don't want overtime again. Your players are frigging tired. You want to end it in regulation. You're going to go all out. I think it'd make for a better game. But what do I know? I've only been watching hockey since 1980. Anyways, I got to watch Sportsnet now and see how I disagree with Doug McLean tonight. And apologize again to American fans who have to put up with Mike Milbury and Pierre Maguire because they're terrible. But hopefully some of you guys can, if you're in the U.S., hopefully you can get a Canadian feed through Sportsnet, TSN, whatever you got to do. Use whatever you got to use to disguise your IP and make it look like you're in Canada. I don't care. You just, the Canadian feed, you'd get a much better experience with hockey and people not trying to explain what icing is. Because if you're watching in the playoffs, you probably know what icing is. It's frustrating for me watching it because it's like, if I was a knowledgeable American hockey fan, I'd actually be kind of offended with this. You don't see, for me as a baseball fan in Canada, you don't see them explaining how stealing bases works, or what a balk is, or what a pass ball is compared to a wild pitch. I know all this shit. And there's no Canadian baseball team anywhere near me. The closest you get is Toronto, and that's, pretty damn far away. But I still know the rules. That's why I'm watching. Anyways, thanks for watching, and these playoffs, man. Tampa looks good. Tampa looks ready. And they don't even have Stamkos. I don't think they need Stamkos. And I think, I said at the start of the playoffs, if Tampa rolls and they get beyond, not just this round, but if they get beyond the next round too, Stamkos is done. Because Friesman is going to say, why am I going to pay $10 million to Stamkos when I've already got a team that can contend for a Stanley Cup without him? So Stamkos will be probably headed to the Leafs for $10 million a year. And then when he only scores 30 in Toronto because he has nobody to play with him, Leafs fans can turn against him like they have against every other star player they've had over the last 30 years, other than Doug Gilmour. So, be interesting to see how that works out. Anyways, thanks for watching.